The dark ages of Pac-12 baseball are upon us. According to Sun Devil baseball beat writer Alex Weiner, less than a quarter of the conference is competing year in and year out.
Well, it's hard to say with colleges because so many things change in and out, and teams that were so great in the past, we've seen a lot of them kind of fade away. Arizona State's a great example of that. They've had a really rich history, and in the last few years just haven't really been there. They haven't gone to the College Baseball World Series since 2011. Last season was their worst year in 55 years. This season, they could potentially have a little bit of a better record, but they're not better by much. They struggled for most of the season already. The rest of the Pac-12, as you mentioned, Oregon State and Stanford are the two top teams. They're ranked in the top 5, but as far as getting back to relevance, both those teams are, I think, title contenders this season. I know the SEC has is pretty stacked in baseball over the last few years. Florida being the top team there. There's a lot of teams in the there's a couple teams in the Pac-12 that can really compete this season in the College Baseball World Series. The rest of it, it's not really quite there yet. Arizona, sure, they're a nice team. They have a good offense, pitching-wise. They're not there. And the rest, it's just a lot of middling teams. Like Cal, kind of up and down. Washington's around 500. Arizona State is actually 6th in the Pac-12 somehow because they're now 9-9 in the Pac-12 play because they swept Oregon in the first series. They kept losing series 2-1, and then they just swept Utah, so they're back to 500 in the Pac-12 despite having a below 500 overall record. So for the Pac-12, the depth is just not there right now. The top 2 teams I do think are legit contenders, but other than that, there's no one really who could take the chip.
Despite the Sun Devils spending this season sitting around the middle of the Pac-12 standings, Alex believes this team can turn it around in the near future and compete once again for the College World Series as long as they can figure out their pitching woes.
Well, ASU's future is interesting because this team is very young. Spencer Torkelson has probably been their best hitter of the season. He is a freshman, and he already has 20 home runs, which leads the entire country. Their pitching is the main problem, and coming in next year is a huge pitching recruiting class, including some high-profile pitchers from the state of Arizona and the state of California. So perhaps in the next few years, those pitching prospects could potentially develop and give this team a more consistent staff. This season, consistency has really been out the window, especially in the bullpen. Offensively, they do have a lot of young pieces, so as they continue to develop, it'll be interesting to see where they go. As far as their manager and head coach, Tracy Smith, I believe they'll probably give him another year next year, and the last couple of years have been very rough. But with this young team, if they can develop well, he should be fine going forward. If next season they look as bad as they do this season, they may look to change it pretty soon.
So there you have it. It's all going to come down to pitching and possibly getting a new manager. For Alex Weiner, I'm Nick Frias signing off.